Kyiv, Ukraine. A cold morning. Flags ripple in the wind. American, Ukrainian, and the blue and yellow patch worn by tens of thousands who've decided that freedom is worth crossing an ocean for. At the center of the small crowd stands a casket, draped in the Ukrainian flag, surrounded by strangers, yet not strangers at all.
This is the funeral of Ethan Hertweck, a United States Marine veteran who died not in the uniform he grew up wearing, but in the uniform of a nation he chose to fight for. His story begins long before Ukraine, long before the front lines, long before the mortar round that ended his life. It begins with a boy who decided he wanted to become a Marine. Ethan Hertweck grew up like many American kids, playing sports, joking with friends, and dreaming of doing something meaningful. But his sense of duty, of service, arrived young. He once told friends that he felt pulled towards something larger than himself, something disciplined, something sacrificial. For him, that meant the United States Marine Corps.
He enlisted with one purpose: to serve and to serve well. And by all accounts, he did. Marines who served with him describe Ethan as steady, unshakable, the guy you wanted in your squad when things went sideways. Not the loud one, not the bragger, just the one who got up first, who carried more than his share, who stayed level even when rounds cracked overhead. For Ethan, service wasn't a stepping stone. It was an identity, a responsibility, a vow. After leaving the Marine Corps, Ethan tried to return to civilian life, jobs, school, the normal cycle. But when Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, something in him stirred. He watched a sovereign democratic country, outnumbered, outgunned, plead for help. He watched civilians fleeing, cities burning. He watched volunteers from around the world step forward. And he made a decision. Not because he was reckless, not because he was chasing adrenaline, but because, in his own words, Ukraine was fighting for something every Marine understands: freedom, dignity, and the right to live without tyranny. He believed he had the training, the discipline, and the experience to save lives. He believed he could make a difference. So he packed a bag, said goodbye, and boarded a plane. His destination: Ukraine. His mission: to serve on the front lines as a combat medic. In Ukraine, Ethan quickly gained the respect of both local soldiers and foreign volunteers. He wasn't there for glory. He wasn't there for politics. He was there for the man bleeding next to him in the trench. Combat medics in Ukraine shoulder a brutal job. They're the first called when something goes wrong, the last to leave a firefight, and often the difference between life and death. Ethan embraced that role completely. He ran trauma kits. He trained new soldiers to stop bleeding, to stabilize wounds, to stay alive. He treated blast injuries, shrapnel wounds, and hypothermia in winter mud. He rode evacuation vehicles under shell fire, and most importantly, he refused to leave anyone behind. Ukrainian soldiers remember him as calm under pressure, patient, methodical. They say he carried himself like a Marine even in a foreign uniform, disciplined, focused, always scanning, always preparing. One soldier said, "When Ethan was next to you, you felt safe. He never panicked, never." On the morning of November 21st, 2023, Ethan's unit was operating near the front line in the Donetsk region during intense Russian shelling. The situation was chaotic, wounded men scattered, communications breaking down, and artillery landing dangerously close. A Ukrainian soldier was hit and collapsed in a position where no one could reach him without exposing themselves to fire. Ethan didn't hesitate. He never did. Through incoming fire, through shrapnel cutting the dirt around him, he moved directly to the wounded soldier. He moved toward the blast zone with his aid bag, sprinting through mud and debris. He reached the wounded and began treatment, tourniquets, airway checks, bleeding control, focusing on stabilizing the most critical injuries while the shelling continued. Witnesses say he shielded another soldier with his own body while working on him. He refused to retreat, he refused to stop. And then another round struck. Ethan Hertweck was killed while performing the duty he had chosen, saving another man's life. In the chaos of the battlefield, in the smoke and the noise, His last actions were exactly what defined him: serving, protecting, giving everything he had so another man might live. To Ukrainian troops, that is the definition of honor. Foreign volunteers come to Ukraine for different reasons, but the ones who stay, fight, and die shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainian soldiers become something else entirely. They become family. In Ukraine, news of his death spread quickly through both military circles and civilian communities. Ukrainians held deep respect for foreign volunteers before, but Ethan's actions touched a different chord. He wasn't there for money. He wasn't there for recognition. He was there simply because he believed defending Ukraine was right, and he proved that belief with the last moments of his life. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense publicly honored him, calling him a hero and expressing gratitude on behalf of a nation that understood what it meant for a young American to give everything for people he had no obligation to save. Soldiers in his unit described him as fearless, selfless, and one of the best medics we ever had. They said he carried himself like someone who had already made peace with danger, someone who understood that real courage often looks like tenderness under fire. In Ukrainian media, Ethan has been remembered as a symbol of international solidarity. Soldiers who fought beside him speak with a mixture of admiration and grief. They say he embodied the Marine motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. One commander said, "He fought as though Ukraine was his home. We will never forget him." At his ceremony in Kiev, something remarkable happened.
Ukrainians, most of whom had never met him, showed up to honor him. Elderly women brought flowers. Young soldiers saluted the casket. Neighbors stood silently on balconies as the procession passed. An American veteran had died for them. They wanted the world to know they were grateful. Priests prayed over the flag-draped coffin. Comrades carried his gear. Volunteers wept openly. The ceremony was both foreign and familiar. A Marine's dignity woven into Ukraine's grief, a shared understanding that heroism doesn't require a passport. When the final bell rang and the casket was lowered, letters and videos from Ukrainian soldiers who fought next to him all echoed the same sentiment: "Brother, thank you." That single word, brother, summed up what Ethan meant to them. Not visitor, not outsider, not American, brother. Ethan's story is not just about war. It's not even just about sacrifice. It's about a man who believed that courage means showing up where you're needed, even when the world says you don't have to. He lived as a Marine. He served as a medic. He died as a hero, protecting the wounded, refusing to leave them, staying faithful to his calling until the very last moment. Ukrainians will tell his story for years. American veterans will recognize his spirit instantly, and anyone who hears his name will understand that there are still people who run toward danger so others might live.
Bye for now.